When you're building up your filmmaking kit, it sometimes seems like the list of things to buy is endless, because it sort of is. There's always something new coming out, and because of the insane marketing budgets behind gear these days, it's easy to feel like spending cash is the best way to get ahead. But the truth is that within a few years, so many of the things you thought were going to change the game for your filmmaking are just sitting in a drawer collecting dust. DJI Raven Eyes. Sorry, something in my throat there. But thankfully, there is some gear out there that's useful for your long-term career, the things that don't go out of date or require upgrading every 18 months, and spending money on these things is actually a good long-term investment. So let's not waste any time here because there's a lot to get through, and I'm in the middle of packing for a shoot in East Africa, which should hopefully mean there's some cool BTS content coming next month. But we're here to talk about long-term investments, and if you watch this channel regularly, you'll already know that I hate disposable tech culture, and nothing makes me angrier than spending money on something that breaks after a year or two. I also won't be talking about any cameras here because, let's be honest, none of them are great long-term investments. Necessary and useful, yes, but long-lasting, not really. I don't think any one brand is much better than the others when it comes to durability or long lifespan either, so there's no point in singling anything out. I guess Ari might be a bit of an exception there, but since I know most people watching are more likely to be looking at an FX3 instead of an Alexa, we're not going to spend much time there. I'll just assume you already have a camera and a lens or two and are at the point where you're wondering, what's next? Well, these days we're super lucky that cameras seem to be getting smaller and smaller while the image quality just keeps going up. Suddenly we're seeing 4K, 6K, 8K sensors in tiny little bodies, and that's only going to keep going. But with all this resolution comes a new problem: focusing and actually seeing what's in that crazy high-res frame. In the days of 1080 shooting, there used to be a ton of wiggle room when it came to focus, and if you were off by a little bit, it wasn't really that noticeable. But now, even in 4K, if you don't nail it in camera, it's super noticeable when you get it onto a bigger screen, and it kind of ruins the shot. Autofocus is getting crazy good at the same time, but in my opinion, it's only useful in specific situations, and it's not good at all for verite scene coverage. And if you are using manual focus like I do, since all these cameras have tiny little monitors and usually no EVF, it's getting harder and harder to pull focus accurately just when it's starting to matter the most. And that's why I'm going to say that a solid monitor is probably one of the best long-term investments you can make, because once you're able to actually see what you're shooting, you'll be able to take advantage of all that extra resolution rather than kicking yourself in post when you realize the autofocus point was actually locked onto the background instead of your main subject. Now, this is sort of a tricky one because while a decent monitor like this one from Small HD or maybe that one from TV Logic can last through multiple camera bodies, the cheap ones might actually make your life harder, not easier. Andy Cine. Sorry, this cough is getting crazy. I'm not saying you need to spend thousands, but if you're buying with a long-term mindset, not all brands are created equally. I've heard good things about budget brands like OC, but I haven't used one myself because I've had the same Small HDs for many years now, and I haven't really needed anything else. But whatever you go with, adding a good quality, reliable monitor like a Small HD or like a TV Logic or an Atomos or whatever, it's gonna have a big trickle-down effect on the overall quality of your footage because you'll actually be able to see. The only challenge of adding monitors to your rig, and really with growing your kit in general, is that the more accessories you end up running, the more things you're gonna have to power. Like if you're shooting with a mirrorless camera, it's almost guaranteed that your monitor is gonna need different batteries than you use to power the camera, and that means more weight, more chargers, and just more stuff in general to lug around. So the next long-term investment I'd recommend is buying into a system that will power everything, not just one accessory at a time, and that means V-mounts. Or gold mounts, which some people prefer because they have like a stronger connection, but honestly, I've never had a problem with V-mounts popping off or anything like that, and I do think it's kind of more common to find accessories built for V-mount than gold mount these days. Either way, they all serve the same function, and that's to be a one-stop power shop for everything in your kit. The point is, with a single V-mount battery, you can power your camera and a monitor and a wireless transmitter like a Hollyland or a Teradek, and that means carrying around one charger for everything. If you travel like I do, that kind of simplicity is a massive help, and as your kit grows, you're going to find more and more uses for V-mounts. My lights will run from V-mounts, so will my director's monitor, and I can even use the USB ports to charge a phone in a pinch. For mirrorless shooters, switching to bigger batteries usually means adding some sort of base plate system, but the extra weight actually ends up being mostly a good thing as it makes your rig a bit heavier, which gets rid of some of those micro jitters. I've heard Condor Blue makes good solutions for these sort of mirrorless rigging options, and I reached out out to them already, so I'm going to be trying that out for myself on that shoot in Africa, so I'll let you guys know how that goes. But if you're looking for a long-term investment that will power all your gear for years to come, V-mounts or gold mounts are well worth looking at. Now, if you watched my video from last month, you might not be surprised by the next long-term investment that I'm going to recommend, so I'll just get right to the point: audio. And I'm not talking about Audiio, the royalty-free music service and the sponsor of this video, though I will get to them in a second. I'm talking about sound gear, because in all filmmaking, but especially in documentaries, the sound is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the storytelling. And since for the last 6+ years, I've been using the same setup on every single shoot, it definitely qualifies as a long-term investment that's paid off. In my opinion, you need 2 different audio tools in your kit to really cover a documentary story well. You need a shotgun-style top mic and then some sort of body pack lavalier recorder that you attach to your main character. The shotgun gets all the ambient sound and the lav gets all the dialogue from your subject. And that's really all you need to start shooting verite scenes. It is possible to do this with only one of these audio tools, but it does make things quite a bit harder. And if you miss an important soundbite in the field, it's going to be really hard to edit around in post. I personally use a Sennheiser 416 as my main shotgun, not this one. I'm recording on it right now. And then this 10-year-old set of Sennheiser G3 wireless packs, and I highly recommend both of those if you're looking to build up a professional kit. If I need more than one subject mic'd at a time, then I'll use something like a Tentacle Track E recorder with a timecode box, but with just the shotgun and one lav set, you're going to be set for years of basic coverage. What you go with really depends on your budget, and I'm not going to tell you anything isn't good enough, but a shotgun and a lav are staples of any run and gun doc kit, and so it's worth investing more here and less on other stuff, because if you go with quality, you can keep it for ages. 10 years and still going strong. And speaking of audio, now it really is time to talk about the music service, because when it comes to long-term investments, Audiio is one of the only companies out there these days offering the ultimate long-term investment, lifetime membership. It seems like everything I use these days is switching to a subscription model, so the fact that Audiio even has a lifetime option is pretty cool. There's a link in the description, and if you use the code LUKE199, you can get like more than 50% off on lifetime access. And considering how much Audiio has expanded in the last year and a half I've been working with them, it really is a long-term investment that's going to just keep getting better. Like recently, they just added a new feature called Elements that opens up all the stem tracks of their entire catalog, meaning that you have a lot more flexibility in how you use their music. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that basically means you can isolate all the different parts of a song and then tweak them individually, like remove the vocal track or the drums or something. So for all those times when a song is almost perfect but not quite, this is going to be a huge help. Audiio is a great service and it just keeps getting better, unlike most camera bodies out there, so if your long-term plans involve music or sound effects, this is a great investment. Okay, back to the video. Next up is the most budget-friendly piece of kit I'd recommend investing in for the long term, and there's actually a good chance you already have a bunch of the things that go into this already. Because no matter how good the tech gets, the one thing that's not likely to change anytime soon is the need to build up your rig and keep it clean. And that's where one of these things comes in, an AC pouch. AC just means camera assistant, and they're called that because on big sets, all the assistants wear these on their belts, but it's basically just a tool bag. Inside here, I keep all the things I need to work with camera hardware, like Allen keys and a multi-tool. And since dock cameras get super dirty, I have a lot of cleaning stuff in here, like an air blower and some lens tissues. There's also some Sharpies in here and bongos and little screwdrivers, just basically everything you might need. Now the bag itself doesn't really matter, though this one from Cinebags is pretty nice and it's not too expensive either. I think it's like 40 bucks. Building out a decent AC pouch isn't as fun as buying a new drone or something, but if there's one thing I can guarantee you'll need in this career, it's tools and cleaning supplies. I use my gear hard and I'm constantly tightening bolts and cleaning off mud or attaching tripod plates, all issues that I deal with using the things in this bag. I've already made a full video somewhere on the channel about what's inside this kit, but when it comes to long-term investments, this is one thing that will literally never go out of date. Build it once and chuck it in your bag for every single shoot for the rest of your life. Okay, moving on, the next long-term investment is something that pretty much every doc filmmaker who shoots interviews will need, and that probably comes on around 90% of the jobs with me, and here I'm talking about lighting. Now luckily we're in a golden age of lighting tech, because even 10 years ago, getting your hands on one that was both powerful enough to light professional interviews in a variety of conditions and still portable enough to carry around by yourself without needing a generator would have been a lot tougher than it is now. These days, it kind of seems like every gear company out there is making LED lights, and that means the prices have dropped so much because of the competition, which is amazing for us, the consumers. There's all kinds of different lights, from panels to tubes to LED mats, but the most useful long-term investment for run and gun filmmakers, in my opinion, is a single large chip-on-board style light that you can attach a big softbox to. I'm saying that because as fun as it is to rig up big 2x2 panels and hide 4-foot tubes in your shooting location, those aren't situations you run into on every doc shoot. What pretty much every documentary has in common though are interviews. Whether or not you use them in the edit is up to you, but being able to nicely light a person sitting in a chair is one of those bread and butter skills that doc filmmakers should try and master as quickly as possible. If you want to go deep into different lighting setups and techniques, there's a link in the description. You can jump on the waitlist for my documentary cinematography course and get a discount for when it opens up again next. Now, I'm not going to tell you what light to buy because there are so many options and so many of them are great, but my advice is to buy the most powerful one you can afford, up to a point. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to grab like a 20K monster for an interview frame, but if you're buying a light as a long-term investment, you do want to make sure that it's strong enough to at least put up a fight against the sun. My personal favorite lighting manufacturers at the moment are Aperture and Nanlite, both of which make great lights, and if I were building up my kit again today, I'd invest in something like a 300D or maybe a 600D if you have a bit of extra wiggle room in the budget. I've been using 300D as my main key light for about 4 years now, and it handles pretty much every situation I throw at it while still being easy enough to transport. Occasionally I need something a little brighter, like when I'm trying to overpower the sun in a backlit frame, and in those cases I'll rent a 600, but generally speaking the 300 has been an incredible all-rounder that I'm glad I bought. There's also nothing wrong with something smaller like a 200D, but that does mean you're a little more limited and you'll need to really control the light in bright spaces if you want it to work. Whatever you decide to go with though, just make sure you also get a large softbox or diffusion frame to go with it, because hard light just doesn't look great on faces. And lastly, just get a good tripod. I'm sure some longtime viewers here are just waiting for me to talk about my Sackler Flowtech. I feel like I'm constantly bringing it up on this channel, so I'm going to resist the urge to hold it up again, but it's pretty incredible what a difference a good tripod can make. Whatever one you go with, from sit-down interviews to locked off B-roll shots, the day you finally get a reliable and easy to use tripod in your kit is the day you can stop thinking about it. If you've ever used a really bad tripod, like one of those flimsy photo ones where you have to adjust 10 different twist lock stages while trying to balance your camera, you'll know how insanely frustrating and tough on your back it can be. I'm not going to tell you need to get a Flowtech, because even though I think the Flowtech is the greatest stock tripod ever invented, it is probably overkill for people just starting out. As long as the build quality's there though, tripods never go out of date, and once you have one you like, you can just stop thinking about it and get back to shooting. Just make sure you get one that has a leveling bowl mount, because there's nothing worse than having to tinker with fiddly locking mechanisms just to get your frame level. The best tripod is the one that gets out of your way though at the end of the day, not necessarily the most expensive one. But investing in a good one, whatever that means to you, as early as possible in your career is going to pay off way more than any gimbal in the long run. So there we go, 7 long-term investments that should make up the backbone of your documentary kit and that'll last you longer than any camera body out there. Sure, there are more fun and flashy things to spend money on, but if you're looking for gear that lasts and makes your life easier, you can't go wrong with the stuff we talked about today. And as always, remember that a professional kit takes years to build up, and so there's no rush. Buying gear on credit is almost always a bad idea, so if you have to wait, it'll be worth it in the long run. See ya.